for the owl presentation. So, we'll take it away.
Okay. All right. I'll be brief. I'm just providing an update to what I gave the board back in June, I believe. And just by way of background for the new commissioners, Commissioner Fox had approached me, I want to say back in March or April, and with the idea once again of pursuing ways to simplify and clarify our fluorescent orange regulations. So what he asked me to do was do an analysis of the regulatory schemes in other states and see if we could use that as a template for simplifying our own regulations. So I provided the board in June with a briefing paper as well as some attachments that contain information from other states. And that is, I provided that packet with, again, for you there. After our discussion, or as part of our discussion in June, I believe it was Commissioner Hoover and Layton had asked that I go back and take another look at this proposal and specifically address archery hunters with a change to it to allow an individual who's archery hunting but stationary to be exempt from the fluorescent orange requirement. However, anybody who is archery hunting during an overlap with the firearm or muzzleloader season, there would be a requirement that when moving, when walking through the woods, that they have either a jacket or an orange hat on with them at that time. So those were the only changes per the request of Commissioners Hoover and Layton. And then just offer this again for discussion point.
So the only concern, and we talked about this upstairs a little bit, that I see at with this proposal is that the woodchuck hunters have the option of a hat or a vest.
Currently, and you would like to see that
Just a hat.
Mandatory. Okay.
I'd like to see the hat mandatory. What other issues do we have?
Well, we have the coyote, and it says during firearm deer season. That used to be during any big game season, which would make sense for bear and other species. I don't know why it got changed to simply deer.
It doesn't say that.
And then the other issue I had actually, and it's because in fall turkey season in almost all of the state you can use rifles, is not requiring fluorescent orange once someone's stationary during the fall turkey season. Because someone could shoot you at 200 or 300 yards with a rifle. So I think, maybe we should try to do some tweaks and see what we can do with those.
So you're looking at orange displayed.
The way it was, a band or whatever, if during those seasons where there's a rifle. See, in the spring season,
It's just shotgun.
it's shotgun only or archery, and it's not an issue. But in the fall, especially, leaves and colors and whatever.
So the definition of a season in progress, for instance, and I think we've talked about this in the past, in the southeast region, where there is no firearm season in progress in much of the like Delaware County areas and things like that, but we're still requiring people to wear fluorescent orange when they're moving, when they're bow hunting. And that goes contrary to some of the requirements that people are putting on the people that are hunting down there. They don't want to be seen. So, I mean, I'm not sure how we can handle that.
I would have to defer to wildlife protection on how that interpretation would be construed in this instance. You're saying statewide there's the firearm season, but in the specific area,
Randy, come on down.
Where there is no firearms.
there's no firearm season.
Yeah, season in effect. It just becomes an issue. I mean, they're trying to be
Discreet.
stir controversy.
I'm sorry, this proposal is eliminating the need for posting orange where your fall turkey hunting station?
Correct. Currently, as it's written, it does not have that requirement.
And you didn't have to do that for archery?
For archery,
For stationary archery in those 2-week overlap of fall turkey season?
I believe you do currently. Is that correct, Randy? Yeah, correct. You have to have that posted 360 a band during that overlap
But you're
currently.
eliminating that as well?
This proposal, currently would not include that requirement.
Okay.
Okay, you want to ask
So,
Randy
so
a
the
question?
question is, the way we're writing is, it's when the season is in progress, but when there's specific areas, and we have large, like most of Delaware County, you're not hunting with a firearm. In a big percentage of Delaware County, is there a way we can write into the regulation? I think it's gonna be difficult to do, but in those areas where you don't wanna be seen,
Which season are we talking about?
archery, the overlap of archery season,
Overlap with
or October,
that week muzzleloader season. that
week
week long.
muzzleloader season. We have the shotgun in there as well.
Well, when you hunt that early muzzleloader season, you're hunting within lines as opposed to your late muzzleloader season's full on.
Correct.
Yeah, but you're not even, in the areas that we're discussing in this special regs area, there's no firearms hardly anywhere. Pretty soon it'll be an archery-only area, I would believe, eventually.
But that muzzleloaders, they can use inlines in the special regulations areas for,
They
during
can.
that, during that
They
week long
can,
season.
if they have a location they can hunt with.
Oh, so legally it's permitted, but what you're saying is practical application on the
Right, it's
ground.
not
just
permitted,
not,
right,
it's really
exactly.
not happening.
Yeah. That's that Swarthmore, like, you're in the middle of of somebody's front yard with a bow, and they don't want people seeing you, but to move around, I mean, it's a technical issue, because I'm literally walking 50 feet to my car or my truck, but technically, you could get somebody jammed up. Or even, some of the other areas that we do hunt that are larger areas, but there's no firearm season in effect, even though it's in effect statewide, it's not allowed in the area that we're in.
That's well, as you're all aware, one of the challenges with the fluorescent arms regulations.
It is, I mean, but
It's a challenge.
the reality is, we're not gonna solve every problem.
Right.
We're just
Right, we're
not.
not.
We're gonna end up with some issues that we're just gonna have to accept and deal with.
Well, can it be, I mean,
And as
I'm
long
not-
as it's in your region, I think we can accept it and deal with it.
Well, is there any value in putting in a clause that says we highly recommend that everyone wear sufficient orange to feel safe? Put some of the responsibility back onto the
right,
Absolutely.
person who,
I love that, man.
is out there, because it's different with everyone. Some guys, they can be orange from head to toe and they still don't feel safe. Some other guy thinks that he has a hat on, that he's there. Some of that responsibility has to go to the hunter.
So
So-
I'm not sure where you're at with your.
so do we make it recommended, or instead of a statutory requirement?
Well, we have a statutory requirement in Title 34 right now, but it's very minimal, and it's so minimalistic that that's the reason that we have all these regulations in the first place, so.
Do you know what that reads,
Yeah, what does that read?
off the top of your head?
It's 250 square inches at all times like a big game rifle season. And I think it also has a section in there for groundhog. You have to wear 250 or a hat in lieu thereof. It's very minimalistic language. It's so minimal that's why we find ourselves with all the regulations. But the simplest thing would be go back to the statutory requirement. And I mean, if you really want to cut the red tape, go back to the statutory requirement and leave the rest up to the discretion of the hunter. There's, there will be potentially some issues there.
One, you're not using
Safety-related issues. If people aren't obligated to wear it, they may not, and we could end up with some additional hunting-related shooting incidents, which nobody wants to see, and our guy, especially our field officers that are tasked with investigating them, so.
I think if you step back from all this and you say, okay, we got to where we are for some reason. It wasn't just somebody sitting on the toilet saying, what can I make up? You know what I mean? It wasn't. And when you think about it, when somebody
Maybe.
said you need orange on your head, there was a reason that they wanted orange on your head. If somebody said you needed to be, pretty well covered with 360 degrees, there was probably a reason for it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we can simplify it. In fact, if you look even at the old ones and you look at the drawings drawings were the same for like most of them. So if you went right down the list, this one, this one, this one, and this one are the same. We can change that and put one picture in and be done with it. But you really haven't changed the requirement. You've just simplified how you display the requirement.
Well, what happened was the seasons got so much complicated. You know, that one year in 1992, we had 35 spring gobbler shot in stake for game. So that's when the blaze orange requirement for spring gobbler came in. Okay. And then archery season got expanded, and then inlines got injected, then rifles got injected, and we weren't sitting on a toilet. That's how that happened.
Exactly.
So you have all these implements being put into use. The whole southern tier was when we did fall turkey for the southern tier, shotguns only. Somehow it got changed to rifles. So that's how this thing got so confusing.
How many shootings, not parking lot shootings of guys or girls loading, but since these orange laws, how many hunters have been shot wearing orange versus that weren't?
Any idea on that number?
I don't, yeah.
We certainly have that, I mean, that's gathered as part of our investigation, so we can certainly get that
Is
number.
the hunter being shot not wearing the orange, or is it being shot anyway with the orange?
Yeah, I would be interested in seeing the most recent data on line of fire
Right.
and mistake for game. What's going on?
Yeah.
I don't recall having any last year, but I might be mistaken. I'll
But they're
confirm
way
that.
down from what they used to be. I mean, we were in the
Considerably.
20s now
Yeah,
with
definitely.
HRSIs. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, we know they're very, very low at this point. And 2 out of the last 3 years, we had no fatalities either.
We're not looking at dumbing down the requirement for orange while you're hunting big game.
No.
I think what we're trying to dumb down is when you're moving through the woods, what do you need to wear?
Right.
And that's just, right, because officers will tell you all the time, depending on where they're at, there are officers that have 3 different regulations in their district that they have to follow. So depending on where they're at a certain time of the day, it changes for them. So if we make it a standard hat while you're moving, or whatever it is, it just makes it simple for not just the officer, but for the hunter as well.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm looking for. It's just,
Well, we were trying to get voluntary compliance, and the way you do that is keep it simple.
Yeah.
right.
Because you're having like 400 violations. And it was our, third highest violations for fluorescent orange.
Yeah, and that turns hunters off.
Does.
With the not being simplified. I mean, I agree with you, Tim. Hunters that they don't necessarily understand the rules.
And I think you nailed it. It's the overlapping of the
Right.
seasons, and that has gotten to the point where, and, Charlie, our number one fluorescent orange violation is archery hunters during the overlap of that flintlock, late October season. That's the number, because we're expecting archery hunters not only to get their own gear together and make sure they have their license and do everything they need to do to have a successful hunt, but we also expect them to know what other people are doing at the same time, and what other seasons are in at the same time, and they don't do that.
Unless I look, I can't tell you when the falling line hunt is.
Would it be reasonable to require them to possess 100 square inches and leave it up to them whether they put it on or not?
Like that?
Because, I mean, how many of those citations are an archer walking out in that overlap and he gets cited and he says, it's in my pocket or it's in my pack and I just forgot to put it on. I mean, could we make possession, in those overlaps and highly recommend the use?
I'd rather see the highly recommended part without the possession component to it. You get into an area there where now you're gonna be having the guys open up your backpack. I need to see whether you have your fluorescent orange with you or not. Comes like a,
Search.
yeah.
I roll mine
It's a little bit more
I roll
intrusive.
mine up and keep it in my backpack.
We're making the assumption that fluorescent orange is necessarily making them safer, which sometimes it seems like fluorescent orange is the holy grail But I think the quality of our hunter education program has probably been more responsible for the safety record we've got.
Right.
Difficult decision I think you all have is these type of incidents are so infrequent and so rare, we're trying to make judgment calls for
Right.
fear of
Right.
one other person might get hurt, because it
Right.
is so infrequent.
So-
And the same point in the southern tier, I don't know every hunter, but I'm not aware of any that hunts fall turkeys in the southern tier with a rifle.
Right.
So why should your fall turkey hunt down in the southern zone be ruined because you have to be displaying orange?
Well, I'm an archer, and during the overlap,
Yeah,
I don't
it's-
feel unsafe going with full camouflage
no.
in the woods.
I
mean,
don't either.
I will out and patrol with,
Right.
with camouflage, you know, it's,
Right.
Well,
hunters gotta
non-hunters
identify their target.
walk in the woods without orange on
Right.
in hunting season. So you
Then
have
you've
to
got-
identify your target.
You gotta
Then
identify
you-
your target. The
you
orange
wanna-
won't help you identify your target.
As a Commonwealth agency, could we be held liable?
No.
Wouldn't think so.
No.
You know, you talk about the late season archery, all the foliage is off. I mean, I mean, I don't know what the need for the fluorescent orange is at all in
No.
the late season.
No.
I mean, it just makes no sense to me
No.
because there's absolutely no obstruction
Right.
out there. So,
I think to Brian's point, it is Hunter Ed that is largely responsible. And I think we see that with the fact that no other state has as complicated a scheme as we do for fluorescent orange. And, you know, they don't have the HRSI rates that would indicate that a minimalist approach isn't just creating as many safe hunters as what we have in PA. And this scheme here, which is greatly simplified, would still be probably the most restrictive scheme in the nation for fluorescent orange.
Right.
So, you know, I think we can look, knowing that Pennsylvania is different, and, you know, we do have a great hunter density, nonetheless, you know, other states, their data doesn't give any reason to believe that we would need a complicated scheme moving forward.
I think also the quality of the optics have went up so much. I mean, even cheap binoculars, and then in Hunter Ed teaches that, don't pull your rifle or shotgun out to
Right.
identify
It's
your
the first
target.
rule,
So the
exactly.
quality of optics is
Right.
unbelievable anymore, even for the, you know, person on a minimalist budget.
And the number of participants is way down.
Right. And then,
It
you know,
is.
Yeah.
The bigger picture there.
Yeah.
in the north central region, I mean, the turkey hunter population using rifles has went way down.
Yeah.
So, in the fall, because they're archery hunting.
Right.
Yeah, we've seen that in the
So-
previous report, you know,
Right.
90% loss in small game.
Right.
So if you consider turkey small game, and then it's,
So
Well, the
Randy,
turkey
rather-
hunters
I
are
mean, from your seat, you'd rather see the highly recommended that rather than possession.
Right.
Just forget possession.
Either
Highly
they're,
recommended.
right, I would, either they're required to wear it or they're not.
Yeah.
Right.
Crystal clear.
Not too sure that possession thing would not lead to some less than pleasant encounters out in the field.
Okay.
And I think, I mean, you look at, generally, you know, it's not too many years ago, they did away with the helmet laws for motorcycles. It's up to you. You know, it's up to you if you want to protect yourself while you're on a motorcycle or not.
And the incidents have not gone up there. I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but,
you eliminated the requirement for spring turkey hunting to have orange, and I don't think we saw an increase in.
Yeah, but the reason we didn't is we did increase education. NWTF
Exactly.
did a ton of education about it.
That's why I go
That's what
back to is
this-
the
yeah,
education. is the
education,
important
right.
part.
and from an enforcement perspective, I mean, I would rather, and I think we can all agree on this, that we would rather that have our officers focusing on those violations that impact the resource.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
The extra turkey that was taken, or the deer that was taken at night, or those types of things.
And not confuse the good hunters. And turn them off.
Very well said.
Right.
I think I've heard the opposite in my area, and I agree with these officers. They say this is a safety violation, and therefore you will get written up. So Charlie's saying that 400 people got written up. They believe, especially in areas where there's high density of hunters, that is a safety issue, and they will write it. And I think they should. I mean, we don't go in and change the speed limit in work zones just because people get written up.
It's from the Northwest.
No, but we stretch the rules. Believe me, you stretch a lot of rules.
Yeah, but I don't think we're looking at it just because people are getting written up.
No,
I mean, that's
absolutely
not.
not. It's the quality of the hunt.
That might be why we initially looked at it, because Charlie hates that statistic, but
Too confusing.
It's too confusing.
it's about simplifying it.
Orange is for safety, and then you gotta ask the question, is it actually enhancing safety?
Right.
Is it really?
Well, that would be my
Well,
question.
it certainly did when it came out. We used to wear orange, before we wore orange, we wore Woolrich.
Red and black.
And Woolrich was not being seen. And we dropped from hundreds of accidents or incidents to the 20s.
But because of orange or because of education?
Or because
Most
of
of the hunters are out there
or
at
declining
55
numbers.
or
Declining
more.
numbers.
They haven't had a hunter ed course in 40 or 50 years, if they ever had one.
In 1966 in Potter County, there was a hunter behind every tree
Right.
in Woolridge. Now you go to Potter County on opening day, you can't find anybody.
Right. Yeah,
Well,
I think
hunting's changed, I think that's
hunting's-
part of the safety.
quality of
That,
the-
that does assist the safety issue, in that we do not have as many people in the woods because we've spread the seasons out so far.
Well, the deer spread out too.
Right.
The deer are spread out.
Yeah, there's not that concentration. I
Right.
agree with you, Denny and Brian.
Thank you,
And-
guys.
So where are we at? What can we live with? Do we want to talk about this and
Yeah.
and
I think we need
tweak
to
it?
talk
Because
about
I'll be honest with you, we need to make a decision on this pretty soon, because we've been kicking this can down the road for an awful long time. And if we can't decide on what we want to do, then we just need to leave it alone.
No, we're
I don't think
gonna
leaving it alone
decide.
is the right way.
It is a complex issue.
So I'll keep in contact with Commissioner Fox then, and whatever the board direction you want to go with this, we'll do so.
All right.
Provide
Thank you.
updates.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we need another 15-minute break so we can get ready for the owl presentation.
We'll start that at 10:45. That'll be us 15 minutes.
Yeah. I like it.